Our words for reflection come from the Reverend Ann Mason, Soul Matters minister. To seek the truth in love means that even when we stumble, we continue to love. Even when we fail, we stay in relationship. To seek the truth in love means that we talk about the hard things rather than denying that things can be hard. This is a very difficult task. It is not something that I have found easy to do, but it is something that I continue to try to be brave enough to do.
Thank you, Aaron. That meditative song we sung has a last verse, since what we choose is what we are, and what we love we yet shall be. The goal may ever shine afar, the will to reach it makes us free. Covenant is about what and who we choose to be. And the covenant that we say every Sunday is a slight variation of the one written by James Vila Blake, who was the minister in Quincy, Illinois, in the church, the Unitarian church there, from 1877 to 1883. So this is an old covenant. And you know, our history, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about next week, is that we come to religion through covenant. The Cambridge platform was a covenant. And his congregation had a handwritten covenant that was several pages long, so he summed it up in this one short poem. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So there are several variations of this, but a variation of this covenant was recited every Sunday morning at the church that I grew up in San Diego. And as a result, that informed my understanding of what it means to be a part of this faith. For me, the intention or common purpose of the congregation has always been more important than the particular theological beliefs or perspectives of the people. And a lot of people are familiar with me saying that I just don't do categories or, I don't say I'm a UU Buddhist or I'm a UU Christian or I'm a UU anything. I just am a Unitarian Universalist because in my mind that encompasses so many different ways that we can understand what it means to be human. Covenant is about our intention to live up to the values expressed in that statement or covenant. Now, the definition from the Soul Matters program that I'm familiar with, covenant, a formal and serious agreement or promise. In Jewish and Christian theology, an agreement between God and God's people. In Unitarian Universalism, an agreement about how we will strive to be in relationship with one another. Now, I think of certain rites of passage as being covenant, like a marriage or a child dedication. When we did the child dedication here a while back, we were covenanting to support that family in raising that young child. And when two people decide to enter into a committed relationship, a marriage, there's something beyond the legality of that relationship that matters dearly to them. That's why a simple legal ceremony for a domestic partnership is not enough. That's what was behind or is behind, will stay behind, the desire for marriage equality. When two people make a commitment to each other, the bond that they create is greater than what either of them can offer individually, and it connects them to something beyond themselves. The relationship takes on a meaning of its own. It is as if there's a third party involved. No two people wishing to make this ultimate commitment to one another should be denied what I consider a sacred right. And as I've been a minister over the years, this has become more and more clear to me. I get so many calls from people who want a minister to officiate at some ceremony. And yet these people tell me, I'm not religious, I don't go to church, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to have anything to do with church or religion. So why are they calling a minister to do these ceremonies for them? There is something about the deep expression of love, gratitude, and sorrow that calls us to connect with a mystery greater than ourselves. And I think it's kind of sad to think about people longing for that connection, a connection they can't name or identify, but they are missing out on a dimension of life that could bring them greater joy, greater satisfaction. There are times in our lives when we just know that there is something beyond our skin to which we belong and of which we are part. Many of us think about the word religion as related to the Latin word religare, which means to bind together, to link, or to connect. If you remember Reverend John Burens, many of you may know him. He was our UUA president for a while. He put it this way: to be human is to be religious. To be religious is to make connections. Now, each week, we read together in our order of service a covenant. And then you also have a mission statement that says the UUCP mission is to celebrate diversity, strive for justice, and inspire love. That's a type of covenant also. A mission statement is a promise that we make to ourselves and to one another about how we're going to be together and what our highest goals and principles are. As a congregation, we agree to serve the larger world or communities outside of these church walls. That's why there'll be an announcement about how we can do that to help the people in Panama City today. Regardless of what we write on paper, the promises that we will keep are the ones that really mean something to us. So in order for us to create a covenant, we have to get in touch with those things that are really important to us. Why do we come here, and what is it about being a part of this group of people at this time that moves us to think so deeply about who we are and who we want to be in the world, and what we are willing to promise each other? My reason for being here is that I care about this church. I want it to be able to live up to its promises, and I know it has some pretty serious goals and desires. And I think it's important for Unitarian Universalist congregations to exist as viable, healthy places for people who are searching for a religiously liberal home. And I hope that those people who call me up and say, I don't want a church, I don't need a church, but I sure would like a minister, I hope they find us. People want and need community. They need to feel that their lives have meaning. We might be able to say today, I think we can, that there's a crisis of meaning in our world, right? Many of us were raised with the notion that life was getting better all the time. You know the Beatles song? Each year, new technology would make things easier and we would be safer than we were before. We imagined it would be the same for our children. People my age did not live through a depression. We lived through a time of prosperity. We had the opportunity also to be part of movements that seemed to make significant changes in the world around us. Civil rights struggles, the women's movement, Roe versus Wade, anti-war rallies, social programs that had compassion and a growing awareness of people's needs, accessibility issues, environmental issues. I knew it was slow and sometimes 2 steps backwards and 1 step forward, but in general, I really believed that things were moving in that direction. And it was with people from my Unitarian Universalist church that I went to rallies and marches to raise our voice in song and to walk and march with other faith communities also who seemed to believe that fighting for equality and freedom for all people was a part of their religious mandate. It wasn't just us. I know that a lot of people who find liberal religion today do so as they shut the door on the religion of their past, the religion that they came to believe promoted fear and bigotry, intolerance, homophobia, sexism, and racism. It's also common for people who find their way to Unitarian Universalism from another religion to still know that the spirit of love was somehow at the heart of the church they left. They may still feel something when they hear certain words or certain songs, or there are other sensory experiences that connect them with that sense of love and hope that they, or maybe some of you, remember from that childhood religion. If we want our lives to have meaning, we need to be in touch with the power of that impulse toward beloved community. But times are really hard right now, and it's difficult to know what to do. We'd have to be in some pretty serious denial not to notice the disparity around us. So if we want to feel that our lives have meaning, we need to find places that will help us figure out what that means to us. For many people, church is where they go when they want to figure that out. We come here because we identify values of love, compassion, generosity, peace, with a religion and a spirituality that embraces an inclusive understanding of what is sacred or of ultimate value. Some of us grew up believing that there is good in everyone and that people can come together across differences of belief and color, ethnicity, cultures, all those differences come together to work towards the principles that affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And a church like ours needs to be here for people who think like that. Despair and cynicism, though, are creeping in. And it's looking like everything we worked for is unraveling. Does it feel like that to you? I'm reminded again of my favorite leadership author and theorist, Margaret Wheatley. For years, I've read her books and basically been on a journey with her through a lot of change in how she, in her optimism about leadership and watching the world change. About 4 years ago, she published a book called So Far From Home, Lost and Found in Our Brave New World. And it was about how we are all living in a world that we don't like and we wish we could change. And that book was a huge surprise to me because everything else I had read about her or from her about leadership was very positive. You know, we can do it. In it, she takes us through the dark night of the soul when she realized that she was overwhelmed and exhausted and feeling quite helpless to change the world. So the question was, how do we keep doing our work under such conditions? At first, I thought, okay, I'm going to be seriously depressed by the end of this book. But I kept reading anyway because I had some faith in her. And I found myself affirmed by her experience and in a place, if not of hope, at least of faith in the rightness of continuing to do the work that is mine to do in the world, regardless of the success or failure of my efforts. Meg introduced me to a new meaning of the word warrior. Typically, I stay away from language that sounds like war, but she explains that the Tibetan word for warrior, pawo, means one who is brave, one who vows never to use aggression. I practice, she says, for this kind of warriorship in a lineage based on the prophecy of the Shambhala warriors. Shambhala. The people of Shambhala were unusual, she explains, in that they had no anxiety. Imagine that. Free from fear, they were able to create an enlightened society. And one of her favorite quotes, she says, is, "If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." The warrior's path usually, or is unusual because it's not going anywhere, sometimes described as a path without a goal, We are not hoping to arrive somewhere. Our only aspiration is to stay on the path. Thich Nhat Hanh describes this beautifully. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. So staying on the path, staying mindful, staying with peace. Here's a little bit more of what she said. In our earlier work, we knew where we were going, and we had maps to get us to a specific destination. We were going to create change, if not for the world, then at least for the people, cause, or community we were working with. We had our measures, outcomes, goals, and we would know when we had arrived. That map kept getting more complicated. We kept getting lost, and finally we realized we were trapped in an impenetrable maze with no way out. We woke up to the fact that we needed a new map. She wrote this 4 years ago. The map that guides warriors is very different from the usual map it describes, not the exterior world, but our interior landscape. Warriors need to know how they are, not where they are. We already know where we are. We're lost. That's why we choose to become warriors. What we need from a map are signposts of how we're doing and what we're learning as we're guided by new aspirations. We have set some powerful aspirations in motion as baby warriors in training. We want to refrain from adding to the fear, aggression, and confusion of the time. We're eager to develop our skills of compassion and insight. We try every day to find opportunities to practice these nascent skills, no matter how challenging the situation. Warriors need to know how they are, not where they are. That's what covenant is about. How we are walking with one another as we find ways to take on the big problems that we see in the world around us. Our covenant with the world begins with our covenant with ourselves and with one another. Meg also reminds us that we have to let go of needing to be perfect. We have to expect to stumble and fall frequently as we take risks with new behaviors. We need to be encouraged. We need to encourage one another. And we need to experiment to see if we can learn the best way to serve. And if we're going to feel free to experiment, then we need to know that we might fail and that forgiveness is a part of the equation. And sometimes it's ourselves we need to forgive. Are you sometimes harder on yourself than you are on other people? I think I am. But there's just no advantage to beating ourselves up when we make mistakes. Has Carlton Smith ever come here and talked about experifail? When I'm thinking about her, he talks about experifail. We need to be comfortable experimenting and possibly failing. So this map that Meg is talking about doesn't tell us anything about time. It's not like Google Maps that tell us exactly when we will arrive at our destination, like this morning when I left Perdido Key and it said it will take you 26 minutes or something. We don't know if we will ever arrive. We don't ask, are we there yet? What we care about is how well we are staying on the path, movement by movement, day by day, practicing our new skills, learning from our mistakes, making better warriors of ourselves on a path without a goal. It looks to me like this congregation has done a remarkable job of walking together, figuring things out together, and taking risks. I know your history. I know you have. I sincerely hope that we will continue to work together, to try new things, to be forgiving of ourselves and each other when things don't turn out as we hoped or expected. In fact, Meg had something to say about that as well. Hope, she said, is a dangerous source of motivation. It's an ambush because what lies in wait is hope's ever-present companion, fear. The fear of failing, the despair of disappointment, the bitterness and exhaustion that can overtake us. When our best, most promising efforts are rebuked, undone, ignored, destroyed, as someone commented, Expectation is premeditated disappointment. A few weeks ago, I was present for the ceremony to recognize the victims of lynching, and members of this congregation were part of that and present for it. And then after the presentation, we heard so much about the inequities and oppression continuing to haunt so many members of our society, those who are not of the dominant group. To step into the work to transform oppression takes huge courage and commitment to a goal that a lot of us don't really expect to see come to fruition in our lifetime. And yet, we stay on the path. Today, we are taking up a collection, or we took up a collection to try and offer some help to people caught in an overwhelming disaster. Whatever we do to live out our commitment to compassion, justice, and equality nurtures our internal landscape, and it's how we are sustained. On the way over, I was listening to NPR and hearing that, as typical, the people who are suffering the most are the ones with the least resources in Panama City. People who probably couldn't evacuate, they had no place to go, they didn't have $150 for a hotel room or relatives or gas for their car. It can be overwhelming and depressing. Meg Wheatley's latest book is How Does Raven Know? Entering Sacred World, a meditative memoir. So I'm going to read you a poem that she wrote, or a memoir. And I thought about her words that I'm going to read you over the past few days as I have been enjoying time with my family after I left here when my friend said, you should leave and Janet and the kids should go home. She lived through Ivan and she was terrified, but they were out of town and we were in her house and they were coming back and they were going to have to figure out about the mother-in-law who's in a memory care unit and where they might go if the hurricane came and all of that. And I felt like, okay, I just need to get out of here because I don't need to be another worry for her. So we left and we stayed in a hotel in Birmingham for a couple of days to see what would happen. And then we came back because the hurricane missed the beach where we had planned to go for fall break. So while I was enjoying my family and this beautiful day and the calm, wonderful water, beautiful sunsets, I thought about this reading. And so I invite you into a time of meditation or silence with these closing words from her book. When I first moved to the mountains, a home of peace and plenty, what I wish for everyone, I remember sitting in an alpine meadow, overwhelmed with gratitude that soon deformed to guilt. As an activist, I lectured myself. You should be living in the real world, not hiding away here, a crowded city somewhere, coping with pollution, fear, and violence. From the grasses of the meadow and the quaking leaves of aspens, a voice sounded silent and clear. What makes you think this is not the real world? The other world is painfully distorted. This is what life is, peace that pervades through the cycles of creation and destruction, harmony maintained as great change happens, relationships recognized as the life force of creation. This is the real world. Others have told me of receiving a similar message.